Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second proper episode, third if you start counting from zero, of Manifold Live. I am one of your hosts, NC Young. I'm here with Joshua as always, and today's special guest is Conflux. Conflux, do you want to introduce yourself to anyone from the audience who doesn't know you, which is probably no one?
Ah.
Aw. Oh yeah, hi. Let's see. I'm Jacob or Conflux. I've been on Manifold for a long time. I've been sort of very active. Some of the things that you may know before I started the Market Manipulation podcast, which is the world premiere podcast created for the discussion of new implementations, betting strategies around surrounding Manifold markets, with at least one episode uploaded for public viewing by market close. But that's kind of on hold for now. By the way, it's unclear. Some people have been suggesting that this should be episode 6 of the Market Manipulation podcast also, because there's this market about whether Manifold will have a serious podcast, and there's certain criteria. But I'm so far not issuing any verdict on that.
Yeah. We'll have to
Anyway,
wait and see what's
let's
the
see
most
what
profitable thing to do.
Absolutely.
I go to a school called Proof School, where I where a lot of people are very active, and I'm sort of instrumental in that and making events happen. Let's see. I was on the Resolution Council for Whales versus Minnows back in the day. I do a lot of mana granting these days because I have amassed mana that I don't know where to bet it. And yeah, I just think. Oh, I sorry. I should segue. I got third place in the 2022 Manifold Midterms Prediction Tournament, which was due to luck. But it's actually also because I'm so good at predicting political events, and therefore you should listen to what I have to say about them.
That's the plan. That was 50% of the topic is politics, 50% is just general meta. So
yeah, we'll see what that
Podcast
ends
about
up
podcasts.
as. Allegedly, there's a 91% chance we'll talk about Mira. I don't even know what that means. How much do we have to say about Mira? That's it.
I think this is talking about Mira, so don't
jump.
jump the gun on betting on that one.
Mm-hmm.
No, we talked about talking about
careful.
Mira. Different thing, first user here. And the odds
I see
just
we
dropped.
have the topic suggestions on screen. That's good. Okay, we should probably get into something substantial here. Right at the top is immediately why do you think Biden's nomination is priced so much higher on Manifold than any other prediction market?
We should probably start by finding out what the odds are on Manifold and what they are on other prediction markets, so we have a reference, because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, for sure. I can actually just tell you while you're pulling it up on screen that currently we have him at 84% on the big market. I think this might be the most traded market that isn't the superconductor.
Sounds right.
And we've got
one from the other Nathan Young, which is the biggest one.
We also have Michael Wheatley's market on the same question, which is at 82%. So they're not perfectly armed, but they usually are.
My bot's on the job.
So between those two, it's a pretty consistent, mid 80s, low 80s, pretty much never below 80, compared to if you look at the constantly linked electionbettingodds.com, they have him at 72.2.
Yes.
That's the common comparison.
electionbettingodds.com, does that take predicted into account? Because I know predicted often has very different odds, and I think that's largely because of their...
It does.
They cap the amount that you can bet.
Fair, predicted, and markets, apparently.
Yeah. So they consistently have the...
I don't know.
Closer to 50%.
One thing that struck me is that Nate Silver wrote a blog post recently where he was like, I can't for the life of me figure out what the prediction markets are thinking. And then as a footnote, he was like, actually, I might be misremembering the details, but something as a footnote, he was like, I looked at Manifold and the percentages were exactly what I would have guessed.
Wow.
I'll
take some amount of pride in that.
So probably market isn't too far off. It's at, you can buy yes at 78 cents.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm still surprised that Gavin Newsom people think is the second most likely, or is that what they? I can't actually read these odds. Um, I guess Kamala Harris next most like. Although there's very wide spreads, like yes
Okay.
at 20% and no at 94 cents. I mean, I think like big picture, the main reason that the prices are different is that a lot of other markets there's like barriers to betting at the odds that you 100% believe. Like obviously, predicted has like the withdrawal maximum
Yeah.
and fees and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's still
no.
like
And anything crypto related also is going to have just like an inherent barrier of like you need to understand Polymarket in order to use Polymarket. And the more easy to understand platforms like Kalshi are not able to have these markets yet. They haven't been approved for them. So you end up with definitely very specific kinds of people that I think are using these different markets. And
Yeah.
the Manifold user base is noticeably different from the Polymarket user base, which is noticeably different from, and this is a thing I like bringing up, the Metaculus user base, which is higher than us at 92%.
92%.
yeah. I mean, I
Really?
think I have a pretty big. I think I have a large yes position on the main Biden market.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I'm working my way up the list. I might be one of the top holders. Here, let me pull up my credentials. Top 5 just at the moment, behind Jack, Marcus, Genzi, and Katya. Anyways, but yeah, what happens in these things is that it specifically on the Manifold incentive system, you would you are able to just get loans on this constantly is a thing, whereas in real money markets you're not having your positions loaned back to you by Polymarket. That's not at all how that works. So we are able to take slightly longer term positions. Like this doesn't fix all long term problems, but there's a noticeable difference, I think, between stuff on Polymarket that will resolve next month versus in next year. And we have that softened a bit by the fact that the central bank of Manifold is just giving us back 4% of all of our investments every day.
Yeah, I think that's
Good point.
true. Although obviously the elephant in the room is that Manifold is not real money, but um,
That's true. That's true. Maybe people are less willing to risk on something that something like this when like on Metaculus. Obviously, you're not risking anything, so that's why they might be more inclined to extreme probabilities. But I don't know.
first user
Like
here points out that sometimes Manifold gives 10 loans a day, which is
yeah,
It
sometimes
does
Manifold
sometimes.
does give 10 loans a day
We might get to
when we
that
all
in
went
a minute.
terribly into debt after
Yeah.
making terrible choices.
Uh,
But yeah, I think just to briefly get into the actual reasons behind the way that these markets are priced, a lot of it is based on just looking at the polls, which are not like factored into a model at this point. There's not enough polling. 538 doesn't have a model up yet. Economist doesn't have a model up yet. All you have is the raw averages from Real Clear Politics at this point. And the raw averages from Real Clear Politics leave a lot to be desired. There is a lot of good criticism to be made of their choices in terms of when they want to include different pollsters and giving them all the same weight, and when they drop different pollsters off, and when they include ones that have like other candidates like RFK. Like they are not as selective as a proper model like 538 has. So right now when you go and
and
you look at Real Clear Politics, you can see, oh, Biden's doing very poorly against Trump, therefore maybe he'll drop out. But we basically don't know that much, I think, at this point, just based on that average, because it's such a dumb average.
yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty late in the game for Biden to drop out if just based on the like sort of news pressure that there are other candidates that are better than him, especially since there's no clear like heir apparent exactly.
Mm-hmm.
With Kamala Harris being fairly unpopular and sort of Gavin Newsom like ASDF. I don't know the equivalent of like smashing keys. Um,
The Newsom hype is understandable to me, given that he seems to have been running for president for the past decade. Like, and
yes,
he's
with an
the head
ultimate
of
look at
the largest
2028,
state,
I would think.
or most populous.
I don't know. I think his performance in the strange debate against Ron DeSantis was not very well liked, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't know. But sort of, yeah, like it's to me, the chance that Biden is not the nominee comes mostly if there's some sort of health issue that he has,
Yeah.
that might cause him to drop out or be like lose a lot of popularity. And that seems like, I mean, it's somewhat likely, but like I think whatever, I think maybe like a 10% chance of that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, at that point, I think the actual aerial odds are much higher than what any market is showing. Like, I think it's not that Polymarket thinks that a health concern is particularly more likely. I think they just think that, oh, he's very old and he's very unpopular, therefore he'll step aside.
Yeah.
But I think
I
a
mean,
lot
he's
of
not
that
historically unpopular.
is relatively
I think there's a
vibe-based.
few percent chance that he drops out due to like pressure from unpopularity if he gets less popular. And I guess there's some chance that he would actually lose the primary. But I mean, I don't know if that reaches like a, I don't know. With a market that's this liquid, I tend to like defer towards it a little bit. But I haven't.
That's reasonable. Yeah, no, I mean, to some extent, us waving off the real money markets and saying we're obviously smarter is the height of arrogance, considering they're betting real money and we're not. But historically, Metaculus has kind of outperformed the betting markets on these kinds of things. I guess you might know better as someone who was high placing in the midterms prediction contest at Conflux. But am I wrong? I think Metaculus has done very well historically.
Yeah. I mean, I think the midterms thing, like my strategies are like, number one, I bet toward 538 a lot, because they have a very strong track record of accuracy, and the markets were kind of drifting from them a little bit. 2022 was sort of an unusual cycle because there was a lot of skepticism of the polls being accurate because they were biased in 2016 toward Democrats and then biased again in 2020 toward Democrats more. And so people thought that maybe that was like a persistent pattern. But the thing is, like, pollsters do have incentives to like correct or change their methodology in a way that makes them more accurate in the future. And so people were just not trusting the polls very much, and the polls had a pretty good year. And so betting on 538 was a good strategy, combined with a lot of the positions I had just happened to be in the right direction, like in Arizona, Nevada. I think it was, and I was also like betting a lot and with a lot of portfolio.
Understandable.
So I think to the extent that I was like a good better in that tournament, that was like how, but I'm not sure how transferable that is.
It's going to be difficult now that silver's not at 538 anymore. We don't know if we can trust them still. Now
there's on whether he makes publishes another model, and I think it's hovering around 50% because he's been saying that he was considering licensing it privately.
Yeah, I read that.
Maybe we'll get it. Maybe we'll get Nate Silver's model.
The thing is, if someone
Manifold Politics,
if whoever it's licensed to privately decides to try and make money on Manifold, that means it'll be reflected in the odds, so it should be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe like Abramovich will buy it. Who knows?
I think to say one last thing on just one factor that I think plays into this is that the real money markets do not have to add up to 100%. And so they can have different candidates at just objectively contradictory percentages. Whereas on Manifold, we have these markets like Michael Wheatley's where they're all linked options. Anything that's not listed is under other. Yeah. And so you have to actually have everything add up to 100. And when you think about who the not Biden possibilities are, they don't add up to 30%, which is why we're not at 70% on Biden.
Yeah, like people say Biden might, drop out because he's unpopular. But, one of the most likely replacements for Kamala Harris, I think she might be, I don't know if she's less popular, but she's certainly not very much more popular. So, yeah, I
know I keep parroting Nate Silver, but one of the things that he mentioned I think at Manifest or at some point was that like the real money markets on like very well-known things, like will Biden win the election, and to have more like inexperienced traders, whereas the real money markets on like more specific outcomes, like more local or state elections, especially during election night, tend to have more of the like serious traders. And so counterintuitively, the bigger markets tend to have the ability to have more discrepancy from sort of reality. But I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's a good point. Is that you get a lot of people just coming in for the first time, and they're not like the people on Manifold that have a lot of mana are the people that just spend a lot of time doing prediction market stuff,
Yeah.
and that is not necessarily true of someone stumbling into Betfair.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Wanted to check one more thing here that I had to say. I need to confirm if it's actually accurate. Let's see. One point is that Insight Prediction is at 82 right now. I don't know if people have seen that, but that is also a real money prediction market, which trades on crypto similar to Polymarket. I don't know why they're 4 points over Polymarket and these haven't been arbed, but they've been that way for a bit now. So my thought is, again, this is further evidence that just the real money markets are not rational. Because if they were, they would all be arbed for a start, and they would also be more consistent in terms of the different options actually adding up to 100.
Yep.
Ricky in the chat says
Or,
fees, which is a good point, but Manifold doesn't charge any fees for our prediction market, so you would expect them to be a bit more efficient.
And then, oh yes, okay. Here's my. I have one final piece of evidence as I crawl through the poly market positions, looking for a way to convince people to buy Biden up more, which is that Domer holds yes now. He used to hold no previously in the primary, but currently Domer holds yes that Biden will be the Democratic nominee. Therefore, it is a certainty, and we should all buy yes up to 90%.
For context, during the Speaker of the House market, there was, back before anyone knew who Mike Johnson was, when he was at like 4% on the market, Domer, who was already, I believe, the most profitable trader on the Speaker of the House market, just posted this comment that was like, guys, I think Mike Johnson is the Goldilocks candidate. And he was at 4%.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that is one thing on his long resume. He's currently top of Masters. He's been a professional political trader for years in real money markets like this. So if I'm going to take anyone's opinion seriously on this kind of thing that isn't Nate Silver, he's high on the list.
Yeah.
I'm glad RFK Jr. is very low because I never bought into that hype bubble.
Oh, absolutely not.
Sometimes the markets for him were at like 6% or something, and I bought a lot of no. Because he basically he has he does not have a large constituency in the Democratic Party because he's like anti-vax and just has a lot of opinions that are different from the average Democrat, and so it's just very unelectable in my opinion.
No, 100%.
No,
yeah, let's try and do another audience question if we can find one.
And Dean Phillips is at 5%, really? Just because he's the one that happens to have declared a candidacy, even though no one knows who he is.
What are you looking at Poly?
Insight.
Oh, whatever's on the screen.
Insight Prediction, this is.
Oh, it's...
Yeah.
Is Dean Phillips at all high on Manifold?
On Manifold, I assume Dean Phillips has nothing. He's
always Michael Wheatley's,
not even listed in Michael's market.
Is he not?
But they have 5% there, I guess, for a candidate not listed. So everyone who's not on the list.
Yeah, I think I bet that down even. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. With these sorts of tail probabilities, it's always good to remember that like things that are unprecedented happen. But I don't know. I don't know who the other person would be. And it's getting
Whitmer, kind of or I don't know who else ran before. Sanders or Warren, unlikely. Booker,
no.
Buttigieg. Oh no, he's listed, I think.
Buttigieg is listed, yeah, 0.9%.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I think if Biden wasn't running, Buttigieg would have it.
Yeah. Very, small numbers for whoever might replace Biden if Biden gets sick or something.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton is 0%. One of my favorite things about like Predict It, especially during the 2020 primaries, is that you can count on Hillary Clinton to be at like 5%, even like long after like she was clearly not running.
Yes,
there was just definitely like someone who just really had a lot of money to spend on Hillary Clinton. I don't know.
Yeah, that was very ridiculous. Okay. We should pick another topic at this point. What do we have here? We've got what makes for a good podcast, tips you wish you knew sooner.
These are just the things that people think we'll do. But
that's true. Yeah, no. We did say we were going to try and be more discerning, not pure whale bait. So
I definitely
scroll down a bit. What was market of the year? There's the Foo
See,
Step
I don't
market
know.
that just resolved. Yes, Crystal Ball and PhD.
Oh yeah, I guess we could talk about the competitor podcast and like Manifold Live. It's like I feel like this one might have the potential to be like the real one. So like I believe in Manifold Live, whereas
We
Crystal
want to be
Ball and
real. We're still working out all the
the
kinks, figuring out what people
only
like
time
and
Crystal
don't.
Ball had
But
ever released an episode was when BTE would get like 10,000 mana profit as a result. Um,
it's a little
and
much
so
on the insider trading. Yes, we do a little insider trading, but I think that
yeah,
I try to stay unbiased. The guests get profit is my philosophy. If you want to manipulate this, then you can do
yeah.
whatever you want to come out on top. But
Ultimately, I mean, how do we save BTE from themselves? Uh, I don't know. I mean, I think BTE might have to be responsible in saving themselves from themselves. There's been some discussion over whether BTE should continue to be a moderator. I don't know. I just made like 200 mana on saying that, which is
oh,
probably
good
not a
job,
good use
good
of it.
job.
Well done.
He did well in the Person of the Year markets, or at least not as bad as some of us who are currently have a peacock in our avatars. So
Speaking of
I
which,
can't
if we
judge anyone for their predictions.
can bring on our
Go on, MC.
if we could bring on our special guest now, I believe.
Oh, is he
Can
here?
you hear me?
We
can
can
hear
hear
you.
him, Michael Weekly. Welcome, the man of the hour, the person of the hour.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned you might want to do a retrospective, and
Yes.
at first I felt guilty I'd be taking away Conflux's time, and then I remembered he had his own podcast and he just doesn't produce any episodes. So, but if he really wants an extra 15 minutes, he can just make a market manipulation episode. But at this point, he's practically the new BTE, so we'll see if that happens.
Oh, harsh
Wow.
words.
Okay. I have to defend myself against this
Oh dear.
personal attack. So
Right, yes, like
BTE
a
promised Crystal Ballin since March or whatever, and kept promising it repeatedly. Was promising it. Was promising an episode 2 for a while. I don't know what the situation is these days. I think he's trying to
Was
start a competitor to Manifold.
was
Whereas
promising it
we
until
have
both his
never.
co-hosts had quit the site, and he still hasn't made it yet.
and came back.
So we have never promised too much out of the market manipulation podcast. You know, they released one episode as a joke. We released the second episode. We didn't know if we'd make a third one. Then we got funded for a third one, so we released the third episode. Then we never promised a fourth episode, but we delivered one anyway. We never promised a fifth episode, and we delivered one. Actually, we did promise it at some point.
In fact,
But-
you guys promised not to have another episode, so I mean,
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Really?
yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to defend myself against such an attack, but it's true. No, if we last episode we covered the Time Person of the Year, and we now have closure on that. And Michael, I believe you made like 200,000 mana profit or something. So
Yeah, what was your
Yeah.
total take home?
it wasn't that great because part of that was that bug where they didn't repay your loan.
That's
Yeah.
true. That makes it hard to
That was
tell
rough.
actually what your balances were before
So,
and
well-
what proper profit should have been before and after.
It should all look
Well, I
accurate
guess I
now,
should have
actually.
mentioned
Yeah, but
in the intro that I made like 55,000 mana profit on one of those political markets due to the multiple choice bug, and I was briefly number 1 in Masters. So
Oh yeah, no, that was great.
So in the end, I made about 72,000.
Yeah, that looks right with the leaderboard, I think.
The big thing I wanted to talk about as a postscript is, like the day after we made that episode, the shortlist dropped.
yes, it did.
And that was really interesting because when I first saw it, basically I panicked, right? Like my theory was that ChatGPT was the most likely, and the second most likely was either like the victims of war, or maybe Taylor Swift, right? So when my number 1 and my number 2 are both not in the shortlist, I was totally freaking out. So I did some like panic selling that like is part of why my profits aren't a bit higher.
Hedging is valid. I'm very glad I hedged this entire time.
I'm sorry I didn't.
I
Although,
want to ask you
I
about
did have
that.
my part.
Yeah. So yeah, Joshua, you've got your peacock there, but I saw you made like 40,000 off Taylor Swift winning. Like, how do you plug that?
No, that worked out well in that all of my bets on Taylor Swift were right this month for leagues, so I didn't drop in leagues at all. I took a fairly serious hit to my actual profit graph, but leagues only considers bets made this month, and since the shortlist came out this month, I was panicking and realizing, oh, okay, clearly Swift is much more likely than I previously considered. And so I tried to always keep her at least as high as like the real money markets, which had her at about 20%. So that's where I tried to keep her at least.
So yeah, that was the interesting thing about the shortlist, right? Is like, so the first at first glance, right, that's catastrophic for me.
Mhm.
But then like I really had some time to think about it. Like on my walk home from work on the last night, I really like thought it through, and it's like this is evidence for two things, right? Like it's possibly evidence that I'm wrong, that they would pick ChatGPT over Sam Altman.
Mhm.
But the other thing it could be evidence for is that I'm wrong, that AI is favored in the first place, and it's, and they just picked one of the other candidates.
Right. Right.
And so when I really like broke it down, like like redid the probabilities given this new information, right? I basically found that all my original Sam Altman bets were still in the black, basically, and there were like a few specific things I could be increasingly betting on.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I was between apartments, so I didn't have internet yet, and all that was purely academic.
So you just had to watch the markets go by without being able to trade on them much.
No, I went to work the next morning, and I was, praying that it would be the Trump prosecutors and that it was Taylor Swift, and I said, okay, that's pretty sweet too.
Ha ha. um. Yeah. Hold
I
on.
bet like someone who knows Bayes law could really like Bayes that out for me, right? Like, it's
How
if you
much you should
think,
update based on the short list?
or how you actually map that out, right? If you think there's a 32%, sorry, if you think there's um a 66% chance it's ChatGPT as opposed to some other artificial intelligence related one, right?
Mhm.
Uh, how do you like adjust your priors when it's when the shortlist has no ChatGPT there?
Right. Right.
But
Yeah. No.
you likewise think that AI is more likely than not.
Yes, yeah. But if you really thought that from the start that it had to be something AI related, then having it narrowed down by the shortlist, in some ways, it actually did increase my estimation that it would be something AI related, but it also increased my estimation that it would be something Taylor Swift related. Because my main takeaway from the shortlist at the time was just nothing but Swift or Altman made any sense to me. Like I couldn't see any of the other things winning at all, and I still think in retrospect that is correct. That I don't think any of the other finalists were serious contenders. A lot of them felt like honorable mentions from the beginning.
King Charles.
Wait,
What was
say
that
again, Conflux.
Oh, I just think King Charles would have been like
Yes,
would have made
that
most
would have
sense
been
than
the most ridiculous possible thing. I can't believe anyone bet him up even after he was on the short list.
Yeah.
Like that was absolutely inconceivable to me.
Or Jerome Powell. What was the other one?
Yeah, Powell is like they once picked a Fed chairman before Bernanke, but like in a year like this, it seemed like just inconceivable to me that they would go with such a counterintuitive pick. Like there were two really obvious front runners once you actually like thought about what was in the news the most. And in retrospect, we had Taylor too low. Like I hedged on Taylor a lot, but even still, not enough. Like she had such a cultural impact in the country that Time is from. Like compared to the worldwide stats I was going off of for no real good reason. Like I should have known they would have gone with the person that was like dominating the U.S. news coverage. So 20% was like real low.
So am I right in saying
Yeah, I
it was
think there's
higher than
still
other
that
prediction
big
markets?
sense.
Sorry.
We still were kind of lower. Like other prediction markets,
Right.
I think got her to 30 sometimes at the end. I was bringing her still up to only like 20 or so, sometimes 25. I think by the very end it was at 30, and I lost my commitment to spending more mana in the markets.
Sorry, what were you saying, Conflux?
But no, I think a lot of
Oh.
Wheatley's takes were good in retrospect.
Oh,
Yeah, Conflict, go on.
I was just saying that I think the previous podcast made a good point about how like, especially like the Time created a category called Entertainer of the Year,
Yeah.
which some people argue that Taylor Swift wouldn't get person because that was the main category. But ultimately, like, their Time is not driven by like whatever they say previously. They're driven by like making the magazines that they want to make, or I think will make the most sense. And I do think Taylor Swift has had like more of an outsized impact on culture than most entertainers in previous years, even BTS or whatever. So
No, I
think
saw
it makes
some incredible statistics of like I think she's like number 29 in terms of all-time music sales of like every artist ever, which doesn't sound that high, but you have to consider that the Beatles are number one and that she's only been performing since the mid 2000s. And if you look at any other artist that's only been performing since the mid 2000s, second place is Adele at 60 something and she's at 29.
Yeah.
So like the amount that she is better than every other musician of the entire last 2 decades is like astounding to me. And yeah, we should have had her higher from the start. And that's why I now have a bird in my username. As does Mira.
I do think there
what
was
is this for?
If you don't know the Conflux, if you don't know the, what am I saying?
Did you say context instead of context?
I did say conflict instead of context. The context is that at the time everyone was shit talking each other in the comments. I didn't want to engage in too much shit talking, and I didn't want to just say, "Oh, okay, well, bet more if you think that it's not Altman." So I started a meaningless bet of whoever lost would put a crow in their name because they were eating crow. But then it turned out the crow emoji doesn't actually show up on Manifold for most people. So we changed it to a peacock for the people who were cocky. And currently that is myself and Mira, who both lost massively on betting on Sam Altman.
Shouldn't it be a chicken?
Oh, did we just talk about Mira?
A rooster?
We did talk about Mira. No, I've been intending to get around to Mira, who, yeah, that was another part of this whole thing, is that Mira and Michael were betting against each other really heavily through this whole thing, and it was an AI-related topic. So a good portion of my logic, I will freely confess, was just, Mira couldn't be wrong about this, right? She was right about the AI letter. She's been right about so many other like GPT markets that I just assumed, oh, she probably has a friend at OpenAI that knows something, which maybe they just knew that Sam was going to be named CEO of the year and a runner-up. But
CEO of the year. I didn't even know they had a category for that.
Yeah, they added it, which is actually very funny. They got rid of the entertainer of the year category and they added
performer of the year.
Yeah,
because they made a performer the person of the year.
It's genuinely pretty good.
One of the top suggestions.
Yeah, Mira has also been honorable in defeat. Go on.
One of the top suggestions is: was Manifold wrong about person of the year, or was it simply that an unlikely thing happened? I think that's like a good point. Anytime a market, is not above 50%, that's a relatively big market. Resolves against what the majority of the probability mass is on. People go, this is a sign that prediction markets are wrong about everything. But
yeah, no, you get that with like political markets as well, where people were like shitting on 538 for Trump winning when he was at 30%. Sometimes 30% of the time, in fact, the things that have a 30% probability happen. So it's hard to say in retrospect. I think we clearly had her too low. I don't know if she should have been more than 50%. I struggle to say that we were that wrong when the real money markets were also that wrong. We didn't have her above 50%. I think she was not, in retrospect, easy to predict. But we had her too low.
My final
I think it's in your perspective. Like, there's no such thing as like the correct probability. Like, if we were like amassing information from the editors of Time magazine, then we would have a higher probability or whatever. But I mean, given the available information, I think it's pretty reasonable. I don't know.
Wheatley, what were you saying about your final probability?
My final probability, right, when I readjusted all my assumptions, was still like something like 25% for Taylor Swift, because it is a big break from like what they're supposed to be doing. I wonder if it's even the right decision. Like, maybe you're eating the seed corn, you're compromising your respectability.
Right. People might expect in future years you're going to pick Beyonce next year.
Yeah.
And I think that's the currency a lot of publications have, is just we're respectable and serious, and if you compromise that, you'll get a lot of sales for a little while.
That's a valid point.
I don't think it was crazy to think she belonged low, but higher than we had her probably.
I think that the problem again comes down to, similarly to what I was saying about the Democratic primary, that on Manifold we should have had the advantage of everything has to add to 100. And yet somehow we still fucked it up, because the real money markets didn't add to 100, but we had these linked markets where we had every option, and somehow we had King Charles at 5% at one point, and it's just purely insane. Like, we should have been able to figure out that it was like basically a 50-50 between Sam and Taylor, in my opinion.
Well, some of that might be hindsight bias. I think one consideration about respectability that you mentioned, Michael, is like, if they picked AI, then like that's obviously also publicity because it's like, wow, Time Magazine picks the first AI as the person of the year, even though they're not a person. But which is also sort of like not a person. But then like AI has like been having like a large impact now, but like it's also pretty conceivable that they have a large impact in future years. And so they they could pick AI next year or in 2025, depending on how things shake out. So maybe so maybe that's part of their consideration. But I don't know.
Yeah. If you were gonna pick Swift, this was the year to pick Swift. She's not gonna do another tour like this ever. Like, this is pretty much a once in a lifetime opportunity to name her, and so they jumped at it. But this is also the year ChatGPT took off, and so that was also arguably a once in a lifetime thing. Like, maybe there's not going to be anything that's as big a jump as no ChatGPT to ChatGPT, but
Maybe.
that's hard to say.
I wouldn't be shocked if there was, if they released something equivalent, an equivalently big jump next year. I mean,
There's been much debate as to whether Gemini has been released, for example. These things are fuzzy sometimes. Let's see. I'm trying to look for other suggestions at this point.
I agree that Sam Altman was kind of ridiculous. Like, no one in the real world. I mean, even like people I talk to who are not like super in tune with AI, like the majority don't know who Sam Altman is. So
yeah. I was talking about it to my friends yesterday, and I was
And
like,
also,
"Oh wait, they
it
don't
must be
know who
person of
Sam
a whole-
Altman is." I have to say the CEO of OpenAI.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got bingo. We did 5 audience submitted suggestions.
Hey. Did you? Nice.
Well done, everyone.
Well done.
I've been resolving as mod some of these.
Very good. I'm still just gonna go for the top one here since it's easy. What makes for a good podcast? We're still figuring out the format here. Like, should we be more selective in terms of like picking topics ahead of time, or is it valid to just be looking at the market and seeing what people suggest?
I mean, as far as looking at the market, I do think it would be better to have some sort of bias toward like suggestions that would create good content instead of just suggestions that people think that will do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gets kind of self-referential. But I mean, I think it's good to have a conversational format where you're sort of talking about the main things that happened on Manifold in the last week or whatever. That was kind of the initial pitch for Manifold podcast and why it's compelling. It's like, if you haven't been paying attention to everything, you can still get a roundup on the, the main markets or things that have been interesting so far. So that's like a good format.
And I like the idea of like trying to give out tips. I feel like that would be a good recurring segment. Is just like, sometimes we might assume, because the people on here all use the site a lot, that people understand everything we're saying, but we should also try to like give out advice that is not immediately obvious to new people, which is one of the other suggestions, I think, was things you wish you'd known sooner, tips, practical info, strategy for new traders. Which, I don't know, I feel like we should try to reach for that more when we're talking about different markets like this. Little tricks about like multi-choice markets, like Person of the Year or the Speaker of the House. A lot of people don't realize how valuable it is to be just buying yes in options as opposed to selling if something goes too high. Because every time you sell an option or you buy no in an option, this is similar to buying yes in every other option that is lower than it, when really you could be increasing your expected value by just buying yes in the options you think are now too low after something went too high. Does that make sense?
A good point. Like, because a lot of the options were like a metal rod or like zombie Ronald Reagan or whatever.
Yes.
And
yeah,
those aren't
Speaker of the
gonna
House
happen.
was a
So you're not
mess.
doing yourself any favors by buying a fraction of a share in zombie Ronald Reagan or whatever.
That's going to be a lot better in the future versions of this, now that we can like open and close submissions and we can edit submissions. As soon as they add like the ability to actually close something early, then we're golden, because then even if someone adds a troll thing, you just press the resolve no early for inanimate carbon rod, and then suddenly all the other probabilities can be more accurate because you don't have to have this one option at 0.01%.
Yeah. I think Manifold has made a lot of strides in market mechanics. Like, just I think like last year, like there was the multiple choice markets weren't fixed payout, so your profits were like impacted by people betting after you.
Yeah.
And totally at the expected value.
Yeah,
so,
the dependent
like,
multiple
the current one,
choice
you
is
can
beautiful.
follow the strategy of bet to your probability, which is cool. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Just that, yeah, the new format is really good, and they keep improving it.
better.
Like, I honestly think it's kind of the killer feature that, like, in terms of like any other market, when you look at it, the fact that they don't have to all add up to 100 and we do makes it just so much more satisfying, and it forces consistency in a way that I think improves accuracy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as changes Manifold made this year that I enjoyed the most, least, I think that has to be up there just because it's a change to their core, like actual, the core product of what
Oh yeah,
they're
that was
trying
another
to do.
suggestion, which that is a good suggestion. They're going to be holding the polls at some point soon of like what the most impactful addition was, and I think linked multiple choice is absolutely my.
Although I
my
haven't
choice.
brainstormed all the other ones. I don't know.
I think
So
that the second highest thing is leagues also is high up on the markets about like what would be the most impactful, and leagues is important. I think leagues gets people into the site and gets them to care about the site by making it more directly competitive against specific people. Like that's probably what got me addicted to the site more than anything else, and I still think it's a fun time. But I don't know, the linked
Maybe
multiple
all
choices are
leagues.
so good. I feel like I have to bet.
I was a League's disbeliever from the beginning. It just made me feel like a video game, and it also like it was just like, why is this what you're optimizing for? Like you're just in a random league with people, and like some leagues you need way more than other leagues to promote, and like what does it even mean if you promote in a league, and why is it only encouraging short-term bets? But I guess if it gets engagement in a fold and people are happy with that, then it's.
I'm
Yeah,
of
but I
much
don't
the
know.
same
I'm still a little
opinion
bit
as
skeptical.
Conflux here. I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but people seem to enjoy it, and anything that gets people betting is going to, in theory, make the markets better. So I accept that.
Yeah, no, I think things that get more people on the site make the site more accurate necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, they still haven't fixed all the issues with like paper profits. Like at the end of a league, like suppose suppose that there's some market on, I don't know, whether someone finishes their PhD thesis that I have like 50,000 no shares in. If I like bet a bunch of no shares to move the market right before league ends, then it increases the expected value of the shares that I already have. And the way Manifold scores like profits, that will mean that the bets that I made on that market previously were like it'll just like increase my apparent profit, even though it's not real.
Yeah,
And
yeah. There's
very
certain odd incentives there. They can sometimes be good though, because like you do want to. It's a cheap hack for predicting what direction a market is going to move. That you can get people to bet for paper profits on something that is a longer term market, and therefore usually if they just did like the math on when this will pay out versus how much they're putting in, they would never bet on something that was that far out. But because of leagues, people care about how well their investments are estimated to do each month. And so it gets us more accuracy in longer term markets in some cases. It still has some problems, certainly. I think that's a major benefit.
I think that's actually true. Or aren't you optimizing for what the market will think, which I guess could be different than what the actual percentage of the thing is. Like I guess in theory you could have a system where you just like said that if a market was longer term, you'd like scale all profits made in that market by some amount or something. I've never really thought about this.
Yeah, long term markets have a variety of strange incentives, which leagues are certainly sometimes harmful, because if you think that a market isn't going to move and it's a long term market, then you stay out of it. And this is how we end up with a chance of AI Doom at 25% at one point this year by 2030, which is clearly too high, but Katney had a lot of mana to spend. Wait, say again, Conflux?
It should be 0% because of anthropic bias. If AI kills everyone in 2030, no one will be there to collect their mana.
Exactly.
Yes, no, obviously the inherent premise in a lot of these are flawed, and should be at zero. But
I think if you design the market right, if you let people say, you know, I'll take 100 mana now and pay you 1,000 if no, I'll take pay you later.
Yeah, no, I know what
the
you're
world
talking about.
does-
It's a cool market structure.
Yeah.
Like
But
if you're
also with
betting on AI Doom, it's like you get the money earlier. It's like leveraged loans or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I'm just going to read
I don't know.
a suggestion from chat also, which is thoughts on longer leagues, possibly a year. I think you could play with the length of these things, but the monthly format works relatively well right now. And over the course of the year, at that point, basically you're just talking about the leaderboard, which I think you could look at more, though. The fact that it only lists the top 20 traders on the leaderboard, I think it should list, like, at the very least, it should list the people around you. If it says that you're number 200, it should show you the like 10 people above and below you or something. But I see no reason why it couldn't just be public and just show the entire like list of the top 1,000 or however many engaged users there are, and then people could try to work their way up that.
Yeah, that'd be
One-
cool.
Yeah. I think a year's a little too long to keep people engaged in that sort of thing. I think a lot of people will just lose interest, which is keeping people interested in the site and coming back to it is the whole point of the leagues.
Mhm. And they're fun. Like people enjoy the aspect of like looking at specific competitors and then like aligning their risk with them or not. Like it's really cool to like see, okay, this person is above me. I'm going to take a look at what they're betting on, and then I'm going to bet on the same thing, so that then if they profit, I also profit, so they can't get too far ahead of me, which
Yeah, I
can
think
lead
it's
to
like the
weird
fatal thing.
choices, but actually kind of works because if you're aping the trades of people who are doing well, then you're making the market more accurate theoretically.
There's a lot of like strange incentives that happen if you think about the theory too much and try to only optimize for leagues. Yeah, I don't know. I try to think of betting on Manifold like editing Wikipedia, where there are these percentages which are like inaccurate, and I'm trying to like make them better, and profit is just like a metric of like how effectively I'm doing that.
That's
But
fair.
I don't know. I can be tempted by market manipulation too. Obviously. But I mean, that is interesting for a question like the AI Doom market, because like I said a few minutes ago that it should be at 0%, but maybe like if the chance of AI Doom is like, oh, I don't want to say a percentage.
No, what's the chance by 2030? Come on.
Oh dear.
I don't know. If it then you might argue that you're doing a service if you're moving the market to the correct percentage.
From the
of
Wikipedia
that.
perspective. think
Yeah,
it's
from the
doing
Wikipedia perspective. Or it's interesting, like with the types of like whale bait markets about like these were experimental markets a while ago of like will Biden, is the sky blue resolves to market or whatever.
Oh god, yeah.
Or
No, that doesn't work.
there is an incentive, or actually the one that I want to mention is zero a natural number, which is if you read the resolution criteria, it is the purest type of whale bait market where it resolves yes if the end probability is above 50% and no if it's below 50%.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people posting in the comments about math and whether zero is a natural number or should be. And the market, like even though there's 132 traders, it continues to sort of hover above 50%. And so I made a market about whether the last whale will be mathematically motivated, because there is sort of an option like people could like the purity of zero being a natural number matters like more than.
I think the last trader will be motivated by which direction there are more limit orders that they can
Luckily,
fill.
you can bet on that. There's a 17% chance in my operationalization that they that they are mathematically motivated.
Nice.
In any case.
Um,
Sorry, I talked for a while about.
no, I like that. Do we want to take any other audience suggestions? I'm looking at the things we've got. And this doesn't count to resolve them, but just going through. There's the food step market, which just resolved, yes. There's the Tumbles
August-
financial system. The rationality for Santos campaign.
God.
And the
I bet that up because it's
market of the
hilarious.
year.
There's no.
From
It's not a
Plasma.
thing. We can't talk about that because there's not a thing.
No. It's like we decide. Oh, actually, we should talk about at Manifold politics a little bit.
That fits in well with the rest of this. Just to summarize for the people that don't know, basically there's a new staff member, Barack, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's in charge of Manifold.politics, which is their newest initiative to try to have kind of a dashboard that tracks the 24 elections in order to like show something like the election betting odds site or the 538 dashboard. And you can just like log on to it, keep it bookmarked, and look at what are the odds Trump wins or Biden wins and other things.
As I understand, it's just like to try to beautify Manifold Market's politics section instead of or just to make it more accessible to like the political news consuming public as an effort to create Manifold's growth.
Yeah, right. It's like it's like a dashboard but super fancy. Like just showing existing markets, but they are also creating new markets. Like One of the things they're working on right now is conditional markets for depending on control of government. So
Yeah.
questions on like if the Republicans get a trifecta, will they pass a 15-week abortion ban nationwide, or will we get into a new war? That sort of thing. And then you can see the odds of that versus if they don't get a trifecta, which I think is very cool and
think it's
a good
awesome.
thing for Manifold to be organizing and subsidizing, that you can actually see like estimations of the effects of government control.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see, but I haven't really been tracking it that much, so I can't say that much. So rationality for Santos, I think we should talk about.
I don't.
I
think
I'm filled with shame.
You don't.
Yeah, I think the whole conditional market thing will be made better if they actually implement a proper conditional market structure on Manifold, where if you bet, 100 on, there being a global national abortion ban if the Republicans get a trifecta, say, then you can also put that towards that not happening if there isn't a trifecta, and then, if you spend 100 either way.
There is not necessarily any reason that conditional markets have to have an NA condition where everyone's mana is cancelled and them. You can structure it as a multiple choice market where all probabilities add to 100%, and then distribute your bets accordingly so that the bets pay out in any scenario. Basically, it's just a 2x2 matrix of X is elected, Y is elected, policy happens, policy doesn't happen, and you can bet on all four of those outcomes. This is more confusing for people because the conditional odds are not explicit, but it's also relatively easy, in my opinion, for Manifold to just do the math for you and display the conditional probabilities. I think they should just do that for Manifold.politics.
I agree. I expect, as in the future, Manifold will enhance the decision markets or conditional markets that are good, because that's sort of, insofar as prediction markets are like useful, and as a way to influence people's decisions is a very natural use case. And they've been doing that a little bit with Manifold.love. And I think that's a direction they'll probably pursue further.
Looking at chat more, Jiskif observes, I suspect it's going to end up being mainly horse race markets, and I do not think prediction markets have much to add there. I think that's a valid point in terms of if we end up just showing odds of each Senate seat and odds of the contested House seats and odds of the presidency, obviously, then we're just competing with 538 and probably not going to do better than 538. The argument against that would be that theoretically we could be incorporating both 538 and other real money markets and any other prediction. That's the main thing, is that I'm actually not sure who to trust at this point without silver. So the fact that we're throwing our hat into the ring is not insane to me. I don't know who is going to be the best forecasters this year. Maybe it's Metaculous at this point, since they've done well in the past. But I think it's reasonable that Manifold is giving it a shot. And I think it's also interesting just as a way to get people into the site by the fact that you can tell them, oh, by the way, if you disagree with these probabilities, you can bet on this if you want, and we'll give you some free play money. It's a good business decision on their part, if nothing else.
I agree that more precision on knowing who will win each individual race isn't necessarily very high value from a societal standpoint, which I thought is more what I would have pronounced it JSKF. You said Jiskif, which I'm very interested by.
Clearly, how else do you pronounce Jiskif? Selection forecasting is ultimate whale bait.
That crossed out. Wait, do you want to weigh in on how your username is pronounced?
First user here very unhelpfully says LMAO. I've also said, and then just types their name.
Well, yes, this is type. This doesn't tell.
I think he means just.
Let me. One sec. Let me do it. Let me post a poll here.
We can ask them.
Just Gift says this is correct.
He confirms this is correct. Yeah. See.
Okay. Now there's a whole controversy about this.
Okay. I just posted a poll where the options are in whatever order you choose.
This is very helpful. Is it just?
I know exactly which one I'm voting for there. Right.
Okay. Good work, everyone. We have our answer.
Any audience that was serious. Well,
we could.
If you wanted a fully serious episode, you shouldn't have booked me as a guest. But anyway,
that's fair.
Still looking at suggestions. I think we Did we talk about what makes a good show and about tips and tricks, or are those still up in the air?
Don't remember talking about
Market
those.
of the Year is also interesting. Although I think
yeah.
obviously LK99.
Yeah, that's
Like,
my.
does
That's my
anyone
number
want
one
to
pick.
make another case?
I don't
that
think
it
there
was
can be a
anything
second one.
except- Would you say Conflux?
Tumbles wants alone.
Tumbles wants a Jesus Christ.
There's a time
I
and a
do
place.
think the
No,
Tumbles
Tumbles.
financial system is
He's
going
like
to
too much
collapse, by
leverage
the way.
already.
There's
Fine,
going to
we're
be a
talking
lot
about
of
Tumbles.
problems
Be true about this.
when the end of the year markets all resolve. A lot of people are going to go into mana debt. I would not be surprised if Tumbles was one of them. Although he's mainly betting on politics stuff, actually. Like, Tumbles is oddly now one of the larger Biden stands on the platform, returning back to the
I
general
think
premise
Tumbles
of...
seems like a good better, but I'm concerned by their like 100x leverage or whatever.
This seems risky. It seems risky to me.
Bolton Bailey says
was
in
I
both the Twitch and Discord chat, has everyone filled out the political compass poll on the spiritualist
Oh,
literalist
right.
/ game
This is a fun
epistemology?
one. So this is the question here is about whether you are, when it comes to resolution criteria, whether you're a spiritualist that thinks things should resolve in the spirit of the market, or literalist that thinks they should resolve according to what the actual text says, even if it wasn't what you intended. And then likewise, whether you interpret Manifold as a game that you're playing to have fun, or whether it is an epistemic system that is trying to be as accurate as possible. And the idea is that these are correlated. I haven't actually voted in this myself.
Neither have I.
I'm gonna be contrarian and say that I am a spiritualist gamer. And that I think that
I'm solidly. I'm like in the middle of this chart. I think like.
See, yeah, this is what I
think
said
that
originally. I just want to grill, but he's asking us to pick.
It'd be nice if we could place ourselves on an axis.
I don't subscribe to the binary, either of the binaries.
Conflux has ascended the ultimate neoliberal.
And I think that the literal criteria are important because that's how people are interpreting it, but also you have to also incorporate what people are actually thinking in their minds, and who are you doing it to if you just make the markets meaningless because you're adhering too much to the literal interpretation. So yeah, I refuse to vote in this market.
NC, what is your position?
I guess I lean more towards spiritualist. I think I think the best compromise, as I believe I said before, is including something in your criteria about, I reserve the right to amend this criteria if I realize that this market measures something other than what I mean. I definitely want to be more on the episteme? Definitely more, think of it more as an epistemological thing than a game. It can be fun, but I like to I want them to be useful more than fun, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, that's probably best for society. I agree. My logic is indirectly, I think it's best for society if Manifold is fun, because then more people will use Manifold, and therefore we will become more accurate.
Excellent point. Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's the whole philosophy of Manifold. I think it's worked very well. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it is worth people putting in their resolution criteria at this point, like whether or not they intend to be literalist or not. Because clearly there is a divide on this, where a lot of people expect people to resolve by the spirit of the market or to resolve by the literal text, and then they don't. And at this point, clearly going to tribalize and pick political parties according to this compass, and everyone needs to declare their allegiance.
Bottom Bailey says the correlation has been counterintuitive to me. I agree. I didn't expect the gamers to be split 50-50 and the epistemes to be more literal.
Oh no, I think that gamists can have both points of view, but for epistemic people, I think clearly you want the market to be accurate predictions, and so what you care about is what people were predicting and what the shared understanding of the prediction was. And so if it turns out that there was a small technicality or that things were misworded, then you want to, if you're a spiritualist, honor the things that people were predicting on, even if they were technically incorrect about the definition of the terms used. So I would definitely expect that to be correlated. Gaming could go either way, which it is in the poll.
I definitely remember back when I had my my market on 1 second. My market over sort of this stall gets so dirty. It's only so I have time to navigate back to the market and place my.
Oh, okay. I think we discussed what made a good podcast, by the way, and I think we discussed
back when I made my market
some resolving those.
over whether 69 was unique as the only nice number.
I found that one really interesting.
There was this controversy. This is actually related too, because someone mentioned the example of negative 69. And if you don't know the lore, basically 69 squared is 4761, and 69 cubed is 328,509. And now, obviously, from hearing those numbers, you'll clearly understand that they have all the digits from 0 to 9 exactly once with no repeats. And it's the only number with this property. But the question is, what about other bases? Do numbers in other bases have this property? And it's actually pretty interesting. I made a market about it a long time ago, but negative 69 met the criteria that I put out.
By the literalist perspective, you're saying?
The way this is relevant is that I was not sure what to do, and there was a divide between the more and less enfranchised manifold people, where the more enfranchised manifold users tended to push more toward the sort of literal criteria and counting it, whereas the other people were like, no, just don't count it. I ended up resolving NA.
NA is often good in these situations, I think, when you have a lot of misunderstanding between the two sides. Just if strongly disagrees that NA is
Definitely.
NA bad always, he says. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes things have been irrecoverably fucked up, and therefore you just say, all right, all bets are off.
The thing is, like, it claws back all intermediate profits and losses you make during the market, which is kind of a shame.
It is real bad. Yeah.
But, well, it's complicated, though, because, like, it's often a situation where there's no resolution you make that will satisfy people. And so sort of from a practical, like, standpoint of being a good person, it's, I don't know. But, I don't know, some people say you just do a probability based on vibes.
I don't like that. I'd rather just go for yes or no than some weird job. I do think it matters on the culture is the thing, which is like if there is an established culture, an established norm of we're going to be interpreting criteria according to the spirit of the market, and therefore you might mess up news trading. Or literally, in either of these scenarios, the understanding needs to be news trading is really risky, and if you put down 10,000 on yes or 10,000 on no, then that's on you if you made a mistake there, and we're not going to like NA the market just because you spent 10,000 when you shouldn't have.
People being vocal or not vocal, and problems.
Which I think that's a valid perspective. But you also sometimes end up in situations where just the market was so poorly written to begin with that like the creator is like, or they've just made like decisions updating from what they had previously written. That's just objectively a different thing. That at some point the creator can only fix their own mistake by NAing it at some point. But if the creator hasn't done anything since the original, if they just wrote the criteria and then left it and then came back, then I think NA should be a lot less likely. I think NA is most often called for when the creator like either switched back and forth on what they said, or they said something like inherently contradictory or in some other way messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of like a last ditch resort, but it's still, I think it's a good feature, and I'm glad that Manifold has it, even when other prediction markets don't. I think it avoids a little bit of controversy sometimes.
Sure.
I don't know. Sometimes there's no good option, and you just feel like you're the market creator and you don't know what to do, and it's good to have that as a fallback.
I had that on the in person of the year. I had a readers poll market, and there was no readers poll this year. So like in those cases, obviously you just have to NA. Like you can't figure out.
Well, that's like a conditional market sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of other suggestions. If people want to put stuff in chat or add stuff, they can still do so. We still have step market, market of the year. We covered a lot of the time stuff. I'm trying to think of other things that have been big recently. Sudoku might be resolving soon, or there's been promising signs that we at least have one confirmed solution by GP of Sudoku.
Is that right?
So that's going to resolve some of the derivative markets. And I expect there to be a good deal of excitement at that point when everyone realizes, oh, this might really happen. The main market might resolve, yes.
So that's Mira's
that's
market
really exciting.
On whether anyone will get ChatGPT to solve arbitrary Sudoku puzzles, or?
Yeah. It's the market is interestingly defined in that it resolves to yes if someone makes a prompt that gets GPT to solve easy Sudoku puzzles 80% of the time, and it resolves to 50% if someone can make a prompt that solves them 20% of the time, I believe it is. So it's not strictly just a yes or no solution. There's also the 50% chance.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have at least one confirmed solve just on any prompt means that the 20% is very likely, and that the 80% is probably achievable. It's just going to come down to how well the prompt can be iterated on that's been posted.
Who added Mirror Market on ChatGPT after we already discussed it? Who are you doing a favor to? Can you resolve things like that? Yes or NA?
Yeah, he's just converting his own balance into profit. Yeah. I think you could NA that.
Maybe we ought to close it before it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mira says, I believe I have a solve on the a puzzle I was using to test my script. I've closed the 3 will GPT for solve any puzzle markets. Still need to test a December puzzle dated after the most recent comment. Yeah, obviously you need to test on a market on a puzzle created after the solution was posted.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things that happened recently. The other, I do think it's worth mentioning the Foo-Step market, which just now, like today, resolved yes for the 50,000 steps, which was halfway to the goal of the really big one. Is will he do 100,000 steps in a day? This is one of the personal goal markets that a lot of the whales have a lot of mana in. I think Mira has like 200,000 no or something crazy like that.
First user here in the chat says,
"Are you making fun of my pronunciation again? It's Foo. How do you not F-U-H is pronounced?
First user here is not that long to say."
I think the main takeaway from this podcast is that Joshua is a big fan of just pronouncing. Is not a fan of pronouncing letters on their.
Listen, the key to Manifold is speed. You can't be pronouncing every syllable. You got to abbreviate.
Yeah,
you can take it from me.
Yeah, that's what the listeners at home should be taking.
Nick.
Yeah, I also think that in the of a former congressman, possibly in the future, rationality.
You really want to talk about that? I think
how much
NC strongly objects, but if as the guest you'd like to.
You have $1 on that, dude.
There's literally George Santos' new thing is that you can pay him to like make cameo like recordings, and people are trying to crowdfund $500 or $550 to get him to say rationality, which would be very funny and also a little bit sad. Because does George Santos really deserve $500 for saying rationality? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I regret making this to begin with. I was going to make like, because I saw all the cameos going viral and I thought they were funny, and I thought like, I'll make one of like, will Santos say the words manifold markets? And then I realized, no, I don't know if we want to be actually that directly associated with him, of him actually like saying the name of the site. That's sketchy. So I'm like, okay, I'll just say the dumbest thing possible.
Totally agree.
Well, and now people want to actually do it.
Case considers whether he'll deny it. Most cameo people scream what they're asked to do, but consider he's George Santos, he might accept it. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his standards are.
I don't see why that would be a good thing for anyone, but
probably not. You're gonna have a lot of stupid markets like this resolving at the end of the year. We have like a third of all the markets on the site end in 2023, and among them are very stupid markets like this.
Yeah. I was thinking we could do a live stream where we try to we have a counter of how many of the end of year markets have been resolved, and we try to get it as close to 100 as we can.
Yeah, wait, NC, you should put up that market you made on like what different shows will we do. I thought that was a good one that the one you just made.
Yes,
because we could immediately get some audience feedback on.
Yes, we're thinking of doing some we're doing these weekly episodes, but we can also do some
Special themed ones.
yeah. Jeez.
Do you have any plans for next week's episode? To hype it for the listeners?
Top secret,
Or-
and that we don't have anything to say because we haven't planned it yet. We have some. I mean,
We
we've
are
got some
open
more
to
people who.
suggestions.
Yeah. That was on my account.
People
which
want to be
makes
guests.
it trickier.
They should volunteer. But
Yes.
hold on, yeah. And so you have the. Do you have the market
I'm
up
getting
on
it
different
up.
ideas?
It's
Because yeah,
loading.
what we need at this point is just like suggestions for
Loading,
themes
loading.
are
I'll
useful
just
in
read
terms
them
of like
from my
stuff
phone.
people want.
Yeah. So I made a market on what special episodes of the show will air next year specifically. Thinking of trying to get a New Year's resolution show. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. Last year we had a call where people came on and resolved their markets in real time, which was okay, but most of them were sort of boring. I mean, a lot of them were, will this thing happen in 2022? And then the reason why it lasted to the end of the year was because it didn't happen. So people were just going, nope, didn't happen, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. But I think there's got to be a way to make that a bit more interesting and engaging. We also...
You could have things like an award show where you give out best market of the year, for example.
Yeah.
Or best
That'd be a good
feature.
idea. Yeah, the Manifold Awards. We could
I feel
do
like
that.
what could be useful, just brainstorming live, is that you would have different categories for markets, like not just like the Manifold market of the year, but you have like the funniest market, or the most informative market, or the market we were most wrong in, that sort of thing. And then once you have a bunch of categories, then you can have people nominating and betting in free response markets, and then you resolve potentially not to a poll, but to like a panel of judges or something like that.
I think it would be fun to have a lot of like.
Um,
Oh, markets
It's
aren't
still
loading on
lagging
my
for you?
machine for some reason.
Yeah, same on mine actually.
Oh, maybe the
Sometimes
site's
the
just
questions tab is unhelpful.
If I go to the Manifold Live.
But yeah, I think that would be a fun thing
There
to
we
try
go.
and organize, just sort of year-end retrospectives. Oh, he has it up? Okay.
Yeah.
Or no?
Also, obviously, we can do something for Election Day. That'll be pretty huge. I think it would be cool to have a, Manifold specific... I mean, maybe we could do a partnership with Manifold Politics. We could have, like, an official stream. That'd be a cool thing to do. But we've got to do something for Election Day. Could also do the same thing for Super Tuesday or some other big political thing. I think those would be pretty much the two big ones. And then Manifold Live from Manifest 2024.
Oh god.
If anyone wants to fly me over to San Francisco or wherever Manifold Live is Manifest is happening next year. And then if AGI is announced, what can we do? Except stream.
Yeah, can you link this in chat, by the way?
Oh yes, of course. Linking on the Discord chat now and Twitch chat. Now I don't know how many Twitch viewers we have, but that's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're definitely open to suggestions of what episodes people would like to see.
I'm just adding the vague concept of competitive forecasting episode.
Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah,
where
that was one of the.
we are in direct competition according to some sort of game.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have to be a special
That's a
episode.
great idea. You could just have a long like.
Oh, you're a bit of a robot right now,
you-
Conflux.
like
It's just me. NC, do you also hear him as a robot?
Yes, I do.
Hey, wait, Conflux, can you try like disconnecting and reconnecting?
You're sounding like this.
Yes, that's an accurate impression.
Yay.
Here, we'll get back to that.
Just try
in a second. Hold on,
unplugging
I'm
and
just
plugging
looking
your
at
mic
the
in.
instructions.
AGI has been achieved internally, says Semiotic Rivalry. Ah, well. Yeah, I don't know if
I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop on the AI stuff.
competitive
OpenAI
forecasting
stuff.
episode would be very fun. That was something we put in our initial pitch. Would that be a special episode, or would that just be like an episode? I'm thinking these would be
I
like.
think you kind of need. I think that's difficult to do as a short bit. I think you actually have to like dedicate a good amount of time to it and like
yeah,
pick
good point.
someone that wants to compete. And you also have to prepare it. I think you can't improvise trivia topics. You actually have to have a game ready.
That's
Which
true.
I think there are ways to do that through markets, and it also becomes a fun thing for people to bet on. Because they can like be watching who's winning and then betting that person's name up. I think that leads to engagement. I think having like random audience members on to compete as well could be good.
Absolutely. I
There
mean,
might
we
be
can
some
have
way to format it.
be a good way to have the audience as a whole betting in some way.
No,
I'm
that's a
sure.
good point. Yeah, they could bet on themselves.
Yeah.
If the format allowed it, if it was somehow like answering questions by entering text into something. Conflux
Conflux
is
got
trying to get
removed
back
from the
into it.
stage.
Can't.
Hang
I
on.
invited him to speak. It doesn't let him.
Invite
Oddly.
to speak.
Oh, there he is.
There we go.
Okay. I'm
We'll
sorry
figure this out
about
one
the
day,
technical
folks.
difficulty.
I think there's a technical difficulties option that I'm sure probably just resolved.
I'm sure
It was solved a long time ago.
Oh yeah, no, that's
Yeah. Well, no, I think we were doing pretty good until now, but yeah, I'm connecting on a different device now. Anyway, do we have any remaining markets to manipulate, or are we done here? I'm sorry, I mean topics to cover.
I think we've got most of the good suggestions. A lot of the ones left are somewhat repetitive with what we had before. So I think we're probably not going to do too many more of those. I could look at the other one, the like what will occur. That's more about the politics stuff, which I'm trying to think if there's anything else politically wise that would be good to track. Maybe we should try to make more like off the cuff predictions.
Yeah, we should.
I think that is useful. I think the Biden market gets to 90% by the end of January, purely on just estimating in my head how the primaries go. I think if he hasn't dropped out by January, everyone should have accepted it by then. Does that seem reasonable?
I think that's very reasonable.
That's my hot take. Is that if he's
Yeah,
dropping out, time's
probably.
running out.
Yeah, I mean, once we get to the actual caucuses and primaries, like, what's going to happen at that point? Like, I don't know. I mean, other than health,
there's no time.
reasons.
Like the time to drop out was 6 months ago, and it hasn't happened then. I don't think it's gonna happen now. But if it was going to, it's definitely gonna happen by the primaries. Which, if it doesn't, everything should go up at that point. Like I don't know how long people can stay in disbelief, reasonably speaking.
Yeah.
Trying to think, there's more than just Biden. The Trump nomination is its own thing. That's at like 80% in most of the markets, but this is so dependent on the cases of him being convicted or not, and the timeline of that is hard to track. I've tried to look into it, and like he's got like 4 different cases going on, and they all have different trial dates, and it's hard to say like how much public of opinion of him might shift depending on how those trials are going. That like I don't even know how to begin saying if 80% is high or low. Do you have an idea?
Not really. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that's the kind of thing that something like the Manifold Politics initiative could be helpful on, is breaking down the cruxes of these kind of things. Like if Manifold wants to be the best at forecasting this, they can subsidize derivative markets of like, will Trump drop out by this date? Will Biden drop out by this date?
Yeah.
And these can be resolving like every 2 weeks or something like that.
It's nice to see things that go into like all the factors involved in making a prediction, like sort of breaking it down is good. More
than just timelines. As you say, the things that go into it in terms of like predictions on like, will Trump be convicted of a case or convicted of like a federal crime by this date? And then like, if he is, will he drop out? That sort of thing is very helpful to me.
Yeah.
I think we've covered most of it. We're coming up on our usual time. There's still a lot of dumb things being bet up, but I don't think any of them are explicitly great.
I don't know. I keep having the impulse to like last minute like mention something and buy it up, but I guess I can also not mention it and then buy it down at the last minute. So it's not like
that's true.
I mean, yeah. Although some of them are a little bit ambiguous, like okay, but real talk, YTS. I feel like we covered that.
Yeah,
Or like, did we cover
did.
what the Manifold Market of the Year is?
Yeah, I think we went through Person of the Year pretty substantially at this
Joshua
point.
and I both said our market of the year was LK99.
Oh yeah, that's
I don't
true.
know if-
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
the
know if
market
you
of the
did.
year.
What's yours,
Oh.
Conflux?
Okay. No. There's so many of them. They're all like, I think there was a survey that was like, what's your favorite market? And I wrote something that was like, why are you making me choose between my children or something?
I think we need categories. Yeah, saying in general what your favorite market is too difficult. I really want to like put together like a list of categories of like different awards that you could give to different markets, and then I think we could have some actual debate.
Yeah.
That'd be a great idea for the
I
New
guess a
Year's
lot of
one.
the remaining ones are like kind of ambiguous. Like, did we talk about why was everyone in Manifold so wrong about the Time Person of the Year? I mean, did we say that they were so wrong? I don't know. Does that imply that we said that they were so wrong? I don't know.
I know we've mainly been going by like which of these we explicitly like jump off of, and some of them are not
I've added an
the
award
same
show
as
of some sort
the
to
prompts
the
we previously had.
special episode
but-
market.
Oh no, the time markets were really fun. Just to not even springing off any of this, just to say in general that it was interesting to have something that literally everyone had an opinion on, because it brought together like the people that care about AI, the people that care about Taylor Swift, the people who care about the monarchy or the protests, etc. And they could all kind of like treat this thing they care about like a stock, kind of, but the stock actually resolves to something. And so it's just like a perfect recipe for virality, that it was always on the top of the trending time because everyone was so bemused by why the thing that they don't care about is higher than the thing that they care about.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on. It was fun, and good luck to your podcast becoming real. in podcast.
You're always welcome back on. We'll
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
definitely.
Well,
Be
yeah,
happy to-
bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Farewell.
All right. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll be in the lounge probably. If anyone wants to keep chatting, but this has been episode 2. If anyone has the inclination to come on and join us next time, shoot us a message, and
I think
we'll.
Manifold was wrong because they were in a bubble. Okay, I'm back.
Good work, Michael.
Well done.
All right. Close it out, MC.
All right, before anyone can manipulate anything more. Farewell, everyone.
All right. Very well.